I don't necessarily have the answer here today, but I do know instinctively that they wouldn't have had the problems of identity crisis if they did what happens in Cry for Justice.
Yes, and I will say, I think we'll only really be able to touch on this, or at least certainly I will, because I did not have time in the run up to the production of this episode to read the entire thing. I read the first issue and a half, which were a great start, and I know what happens at the end. I know that bad things happen to the bad guys, and a lot of people cried about it because, oh no.
Do you want to hear IGN's review?
My superhero's not supposed to stop the bad guy. He's only supposed to temporarily halt the bad guy. No.
So IGN... and again, despite the beautiful art in this, which was drawn by Mauro Casclioghi, who only did this 3 issues of Trial of Shazam and then just has disappeared off the face of the earth.
That's a shame, because the art in this is fantastic.
The art in this is perfect. I think it might be it's better than Kingdom Come. I'm going to say it. Like, until the later issue, where other artists start filling in, the first couple issues, unbelievable. My favourite of all time. The IGN review didn't take that into account. The last issue, they reviewed it as, I realise this might be symptomatic of a serious character deficiency on my part, but I normally derive great enjoyment out of reading a truly awful comic. Not so with James Robinson's conclusion to his remarkable, terrible Cry for Justice miniseries. Here's a comic that is so awful, it dives well below other entertainingly bad comics right into the category of books that just make you sad, dumbfounded, depressed, or a bit angry. How does a major publisher let something like this so awful see print? How do they allow their characters to be handled in such a way? If there was a purpose to this series beyond mistreating 2 of DC's flagship characters beyond repair and providing definitive proof that James Robinson has officially lost his touch, I missed it.
Cry about it.
Genuinely.
Cry about it.
Cry is in the title, and you've done so, sir. So the crash course for Cry for Justice is, it's a follow-on from Final Crisis, which, spoiler alert, Batman gets, they believe, killed in Final Crisis. He's sent through time.
Teleported into the past.
We won't cover that here, it's dumb. And Martian Manhunter gets speared and incinerated by Libra and the Secret Society of Supervillains, which was a very tragic death. He was later brought back in Blackest Night and Brightest Day. But anyway, so the Justice League have lost 2 of their flagship founding members all the way back from The Brave and the Bold in the 50s. And so Hal Jordan is going on the offensive to start policing the Secret Society of Supervillains and saying we should take a proactive method to seeking justice rather than just a sit back, relax, reactive method of being on monitor duty and responding to threats while they are necessarily active. Because we know the names of these people. We know their long criminal histories. Why are they allowed to run out on the streets like the Assassin's Guild were in Identity Crisis, and we just apprehend them as soon as they send one of our partners a threatening letter? We can't let it get that late because friends have died now. This is unfair. And Oliver Queen, despite having that perspective in here, him and Hal voted against it, they flip and they decide, you know what? They're right.
Well, I think Oliver is just the perspective of, listen, Hal, I trust you.
Yes.
I'll come with you. I'll stick by your side no matter what, because you and I have history. We have been friends for years.
Yeah, and the hard-traveling heroes hit the road, and they go around America, particularly Gotham, cleaning up the stragglers of the Secret Society of Supervillains, like Black Manta and Mr. Freeze and all this sort. And so we see, over the process of the book, a coalition building, because different characters have been aggrieved. We see Congo Bill and the Second Starman. Second Starman's had his boyfriend die. Congo Bill has had his entire gorilla tribe and one of his friends who's a superhero die. And so Supergirl has also been involved, Captain Marvel, Shazam, Jay Garrick, and they all come together to try and hunt down Prometheus. They end up finding out it is Prometheus because different pieces of time travel technology have been stolen from places like Star Labs and the Flash Museum.
I'm not as familiar with Prometheus as a villain. Do you mind just explaining just a little bit for me?
Prometheus was introduced in New Year's Evil Prometheus and JLA 17 in the Grant Morrison run as someone who had a CD-ROM installed into his helmet, who knew all the Justice League's weaknesses, and so he's a one-man Tower of Babel who could take them all down all at once.
Sounds pretty dangerous. Sounds like the kind of guy that you want to take care of.
Yes, exactly. What ends up happening, actually, is Batman does take care of him at one point, because Prometheus comes back after number 17 with a vengeance, and Batman swaps his CD-ROM so that Prometheus doesn't get the information to defeat the Justice League fed into his brain. He gets the mind of Professor Stephen Hawking. And the body of Professor Stephen Hawking. Batman reduces him to someone incapable of movement.
He reduces him to be a vegetable.
Literally, yes.
Oh, okay, all right, fair play.
So then Prometheus later on tracks down his successor when he gets his mind fixed in some annoying continuity thing, kills his successor and takes back the mantle and decides to revenge himself upon the Justice League. And he is compiling time travel technology and one of the gorilla scientists from Gorilla City to build a time travel device that will create every city that the superheroes are consigned to into bottle cities of Kandor spread out across the galaxy. So you'll never see them again. And by the time you go and locate your city and try and transport it back to Earth, loads of the people have been starving to death because they're disconnected from the resources and that. It's not just I'm going to kill your cities, but I'm going to torture you with the knowledge that you never know where they are. And it's very personal. So what they do in the process of this is they first think they've apprehended Prometheus, and so they tie him to a chair and torture him, and it turns out to be Clayface, and he has a bomb, and he goes off. They also torture Killer Moth by having the Atom enter his head.
Oh, I saw some of the Atom torturing people in this, and I can understand why Atom would be feeling a bit brutal after the events of Identity Crisis.
Almost in exactly the same way that Sudibny dies.
Except he's much better at it than
he's more
was.
precise. He's just stamping on their sinuses to give them a headache rather than an actual brain hemorrhage because they can't talk if they do that. They're actively torturing villains and going outside the remit of the Justice League for multiple weeks. Then when they eventually apprehend Prometheus, it is because Prometheus has been disguised in their midst the entire time as Captain Marvel Jr. He has been wearing a cloaking device, and he has gained access to the Justice League Watchtower to, 1, incapacitate Red Arrow by lopping off his arm, and 2, using the Justice League Watchtower's supercomputer to activate all of the devices at the same time, which these villains that he's recruited have been planting in the cities. The first one to go off is Star City, Green Arrows, and he does the Ozymandias thing of, yeah, while I've been sitting here talking, it already went off 5 minutes ago. The problem is, Prometheus is kind of retard. The devices don't work.
Oh, okay, that's
They
all
don't
right,
teleport. They just destroy the city.
Oh.
And hundreds of thousands of people die, including Green Arrow's granddaughter and Roy's daughter, and they find the child's body in the rubble.
I wonder why Green Arrow would want to absolutely murder Prometheus at the end. I mean, the whole point of this whole idea is the cry for justice. These people, they've been going through, and this is what I got from the first issue.
Yeah.
They've been going through doing their jobs, and they realize that what they are doing does not constitute real justice. So they decide that they want real justice. What would real justice look like for Prometheus after having done something like that? It wouldn't look like a cozy prison cell. It wouldn't even look like a dingy prison cell, if you ask me. It looks like gone.
Well, Prometheus has also already killed the Global Guardians, slaughtered all of their teammates, and turned one of the heroes called Tasmanian Devil into a literal bearskin rug in his apartment.
Oh, we can't cross the line though, guys. We can't cross the line. That's not what my superheroes do.
And then what happens is Prometheus, in exchange for telling them where all the other devices are to deactivate them, all of which have individual codes, they're a ball ache to deactivate before they all go off and destroy their cities rather than teleporting them away, guaranteeing the certain death of millions, they have to let him go. And he escapes back into his technology portal. He has this key to go into a parallel dimension.
In situations like that, you end up with the Batman and Joker of like, how responsible am I for all the people you end up killing because I let you go?
Yeah, you are guaranteeing casualties.
Is it better for me to sacrifice one life, yours, to prevent you from doing that, or just let you take all these other lives?
Well, they literally have to let him go so all of those lives aren't taken. And then what happens is Oliver Queen, who has been questioning the torture throughout, he actually says to the Atom and Green Lantern, torture is wrong, torture is what they do, not us. I know you've been through a lot, Atom, more than most of us, your wife, your life, I know, but somewhere along the way, skipping through all those worlds and realities, it's changed you. This isn't you. This isn't the Ray Palmer that was my friend. So he's against torture to elicit the information out of it, but it gets to the point where it's so personalized for him, it's so arbitrary a death to murder a child and incapacitate someone he sees as his son, that he realizes, no, this guy's an active threat. He'll never stop. He knows our identities, and we've only let him go so that he doesn't murder millions, but he uses the Shade from James Robinson's Starman to find Prometheus' base, because Shade says everywhere has shadows, including a parallel dimension. If I can travel through shadows, I can travel anywhere. So he just materializes there and shoots Prometheus square in the eyes and says justice and walks out.
It's pretty badass.
Everyone hated it. In the actual Green Lantern follow-up, he gets taken to trial, apprehended by the Justice League and put in prison, and Roy goes on a really dark arc of becoming Arsenal. Nothing about that was unjustified. You are stopping an active threat who escaped, who was going to maim and murder millions more, and just
He's already
maimed your
killed
son
hundreds of thousands
and murdered your granddaughter. Totally justified.
No, but I don't
shooting
want to
him.
step over the line, guys. I don't want to step over the line.
That's the principle of the Second Amendment.
So what else had James Robinson done? Because I don't know if I'm familiar with his work or not.
The entire Starman run. He began JSA before Jeff Johns took over. He did a Justice League run. James Robinson's incredibly
So he was well regarded before
He'd
this.
worked at DC for like 25 years.
And what was his reputation after this?
Bad. Very bad.
Really?
Yeah. One comic basically destroyed his career.
That's such a shame, especially given...
This is one of the this has been on lists of the most hated DC comic of all time. Tom King exists.
I mean, the problem is that these comic book fans can often complain about a lack of maturity in the stories. Oh, it's way too cartoony. Oh, it can be way too black and white in the morality. And then you introduce stories that introduce the grey area, that explore them in a more realistic way, that have the characters making difficult decisions, and everybody freaks out about it.
Everyone loses their minds.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.